it's Mel here back on my channel, just having a very exciting conversation in a minute with a founder of a skincare brand that I have been following and engaging with over the last couple of years, in fact, and it is Rebecca from Scintilla who will be joining me this evening to talk about all things sustainable skincare. For me personally, I'm here in Ohio. I was also in Denver recently, and it was hot. So what I was looking for was a sunscreen that wasn't wrapped in plastic. All of these ingredients and lists and everything, I just had no idea what was in it. Oh, Rebecca, hi.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. I was just kind of monologuing a little bit about my frustrations to do with basically trying to find a sunscreen that I actually felt good about, because it's really warm over here and sunscreen is something I'm super diligent about. And I started looking at all these ingredients on the back and I thought, I don't understand a word of what's in this. I don't know whether it's good for my skin. I don't know if it's bad for the environment and all of this stuff. So I am absolutely selfishly delighted to have you with me so we can dive into all things sustainability when it comes to skincare, because I'm sure you'll tell us it's a minefield.
It is, yes.
To say the least.
But
the beauty industry is phenomenal though. It's like, I think it's like I have it here, $603 billion on the global market. It's wondrously large. And if you think about the variety of products, the number of ingredients, the different brands out there, it can just be absolutely overwhelming. So before we kick in to this conversation, I'd love to know a little bit more about you and how you arrived to where you did, which is becoming the founder of a sustainable skincare brand.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know that much about Scintilla, we started about 3 years ago, actually under the name Conscious House London. But back in April, we went through a rebrand, really to kind of correct the path that the brand was on. I really wanted to go kind of back to basics and reconnect with all of the kind of natural ingredients that we were using, and to put a little bit more of a kind of self-care angle onto skincare, because skincare really is more than just the products that you dutifully apply, and that's kind of something that I live by. I'm not at all one of those huge skincare junkies, but it's, for me, a simple routine, something that you can do, and it's that moment that you can kind of take for yourself in the day. I fell into skincare, I guess. My academic background is in environment and sustainability. I studied environmental management with a focus on waste at university, and from there I went on to work for a sustainability consultancy which actually focused on business carbon emissions. It was while I was working there that I really got the drive for running a sustainable business. Seeing other companies' operations and the impact that it has certainly had an effect on me. So really I came at it from that kind of sustainability point of view. With regards to skincare, I had a pretty easy journey up until the age of 22. I was wearing Maybelline's Dream Matte Mousse basically every day, often going to sleep in it as well. I was quite a lucky, averagely spotty teenager, but I never really had any skin problems. But it wasn't until I started working and living in London that I started to have skin impact. I developed kind of red flaky patches on my skin. I had awful spots come up on my jawline. I had breakouts on my cheeks and my chin. I put it down to kind of change in the environment, the pollution of the tube, but also a lot of eating out and drinking out, as anybody who kind of joins the city life at an early age will know. So it was kind of there that I started to look for products that help my skin. I wanted to treat it a little bit better. So I started looking for products that ticked boxes for me. I was already applying kind of sustainability to lots of other aspects of my life. So I looked for products that had natural ingredients, that had kind of minimal environmental impact, that had sustainable packaging, but were also affordable. And I found that there weren't very many products that ticked all those boxes for me. So I basically found a small gap to fill.
That's amazing. What an incredible story. And I love that it's also rooted in your original kind of exploration of sustainability from the corporate and the business angle. And then there's this gorgeous layer of like personal experience, which led you to creating a skincare brand because you couldn't actually find what you wanted on the market.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's often the way it goes in entrepreneurship, really. When you scratch your own itch or you find a gap in the market, you just think, well, actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, in terms of learning about all the things that go into a skincare product, like, how on earth did you even begin to figure out what to put in item number one, whatever that was? What was the first thing that you made?
The first thing I made was a shea butter body butter, which is very simple. Can be just one ingredient, but I started with two. In terms of learning, I still am. There's lots of new, particularly natural ingredients or naturally derived ingredients popping up all the time. And I'm really loving to see the development of byproduct and upcycled ingredients. So it's definitely something that you can't just learn and then that's it and you use what you've got. There's constantly new information and research coming out, which is great because I love learning and that's a great part of the experience for me. I started basically as a DIYer. I was Pinteresting recipes. You know, we've all been there with the kind of face masks that don't work. And I strongly advise checking the measurements of any DIY turmeric face mask that you make because it is also used as a yellow dye.
I figured this one out myself a year or two ago. And I said to my boyfriend, oh, I'm just going to, you know, self-care, do a mask. I was Googling, saw this turmeric one, which I eat anyway. I thought, I've got loads of that. Mixed it all up, chucked it on my face. And then I looked at my hands and they were bright yellow. And I washed them and they were still yellow. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be the yellowest person. So I spent the next like 20 minutes Googling, how do I get turmeric yellow off my face? It was such a disaster.
If you do try it, lemon juice helps. A bit like the old kind of fake tan trick. If you've got streaky fake tan, a bit of lemon juice goes a long way.
I'm actually going to make a note of that because I didn't know that at the time. And there was much scrubbing and hot water involved, which is not...
I can imagine.
Anyway.
So yes, I started with a lot of DIYing and that really helps with getting to know what ingredients are anyway. I also am the daughter of a perfumer, so I spent many long summers in my dad's lab, which gave me the experience of working with natural ingredients and fragrance and things like that. But I also read a lot of brilliant books written by botanists and formulators, which you can learn a lot from if you're definitely kind of into your topic. I'm really sorry about the number of sirens that are going past. It seems to be a lot this evening.
Reflecting on the wall and everything. What's going on?
Yeah. Sure. There is a police station near here, but it's not normally this bad. I apologise. Anyway, so I did a lot of DIY, I read a lot of books, but I've also been undertaking a skincare formulation diploma, which kind of takes you from the very beginning of learning about ingredients right through to kind of matching ingredients together. So in terms of the learning process, as I said, it's ongoing and there's new ingredients coming out all the time, but there's loads of great resources out there. And, you know, you don't have to be looking to start a skincare brand to be able to do some of this stuff. You just have to have an interest in making things at home, and that's a great place to start.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And it's such a nice way to kind of take ownership over your own skincare, because so often we find ourselves self-diagnosing what's wrong with us and then browsing the shelves thinking, oh, one of these will have the answer, whereas actually, you know, it's something that could already exist in your kitchen, or even, you know, it could be something that you can make yourself. So I love that message. That's really, really cool. And what an interesting background. Like I've never met anybody who's the daughter of a perfumer. What is that? That's incredible. So we've kind of talked a little bit about your origin story, where you started from, the fact that kind of skincare actually is a bit more accessible, and you've got this unique blend of sustainability experience, kind of this gorgeous array of, you know, creative you've created for yourself. So where has that led you to today? You said your brand's had a refresh and all sorts of things. Like what's happening with Scintilla right now?
So right now I am frantically preparing for Christmas, which is
Oh,
I know that's probably going to get a lot of eye rolls, but I absolutely love the festive season. So yeah, there's a lot coming up. But right now we've just very recently launched a new collection, which for me was kind of revisiting where the brand started back in 2018, and really looking at building the kind of foundations of a sustainable daily routine. So the new collection includes things like lip balms, a hand cream, face cream, body moisturizer, and they're really things that I keep as kind of my key staples of my own skincare routine. So this kind of builds the foundation of those essentials. And from there, you know, you can pick and choose which bits that you need or you want to try. And for me, it was really to kind of have just a little bit of everything to help people experience the kind of natural ingredients that go into it. And these formulations, I've tried to keep them super simple with really nice plant-based ingredients. And that's one of the things that's key to Scintilla is the name itself in English means a tiny trace or a spark of something. And that really kind of resonated with me in terms of the meaning, because I want to have our products leave only a trace of a footprint from ingredients to product to company operations. So with our products, they're formulated so that a little bit can go a long way. And there's some really lovely ingredients like shea butter and avocado oil, which really do that. They're very highly moisturizing ingredients that last for a long time.
wow. Wow, I love that. And I think the idea of having simplicity is almost the same with food. You know, the more things there are on an ingredient list, the more suspect it is, in fact,
Yeah.
because it's fillers, it's colorants, it's like, you know, false aromas, there's all this kind of stuff that you just don't, it isn't necessary, let's say. I mean, for your brand, let's talk a little bit more about the types of skin it's good for, because you've mentioned it's really natural, it's very few ingredients. Like, whose skin would really benefit from this?
It's difficult to put a label on it, and I think that's one of the things that the skincare industry does is so often you'll see oily skin or combination skin, or even one which I really hate, which is normal skin, because skincare is such a unique personal thing. Everybody's skin makeup is completely different. But on the other hand, I understand that to be able to reach consumers, brands have to be able to put brackets out there that apply to people. And in turn, as consumers, that helps us search for what we think we need. So for me, these products are probably suitable for people who have that kind of normal or combination skin to slightly drier skin. The nature of kind of plant-based ingredients in general is that they are slightly oilier and butterier. So it means that for slightly drier skin, you've got that really nice hydration. For oily skin, lightly oily skin, these products will work really well as well.
And there is so much conflicting advice, and your kind of personal story at the beginning is very similar to mine. I had absolutely no skincare problems all the way through high school, university, nothing. And even in the last 5 years, my skin has done a complete U-turn, and it's not the same. And I have an identical twin sister who has zero of these issues. So like when I go home, I look at her and I just think, why? Like, your skin is amazing, and mine, I really struggle with it. And I don't know what I have. I don't know what type of skin I have anymore. So even finding something in the supermarket or searching for something online, you know, I don't really know what to look for. So I think it's almost liberating in a way to know that it's not my skin that's the problem. It's more the way that the industry has described people's skin and got you to connect with a certain type of product in order to get you hooked on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of which, one of the things I was researching that I found out was, like, you know, if you've got spots appearing on your skin, maybe you should use something which dries them out, or maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should use oil, or actually it makes it more oily. There's so much conflicting advice going around. But what would you say are like some of the core things that people should watch out for if they're looking to kind of learn more or opt for a more sustainable skincare? Like, what sort of ingredients, chemicals should they avoid, and what sort of things might they prefer in lieu of those things?
Yeah, I think it again completely depends on your skin type and the type of conditions that you might be dealing with. You know, things like eczema and psoriasis, flare up in a completely different way to acne does. I think in terms of ingredients, natural is good because we've got none of those kind of nasties going into the body. It is a complete myth that everything you put on your skin is completely absorbed into the bloodstream, because the skin is made up of lots of different layers and things absorb differently, and the way products are absorbed completely depends on the makeup that they have, or how they've been formulated. But we want to avoid things that are kind of microplastics or under those kind of parabens or phthalates. Those are the kind of two key words that you want to look for. I personally am a big natural skincare fan from both sides. I like the idea that what I'm applying to my skin occurs naturally on the planet, but I also like that at the end of life, it's not going to impact the environment. There's a lot of kind of misleading information about ingredients on skincare. So for anybody who doesn't know, the ingredients list on the back of your skincare will always be listed with highest concentration to lowest concentration. And your low concentration items will be things like the essential oils, which are limited in various products down to different percentages. So for example, on a face cream, some essential oils might be limited to maybe 0.5% or 1%. Yeah, very, very small. But on the other hand, they also can result in sensitivities with skin. So natural isn't always best. So I think it's a process of trial and error. Do your research onto brands that use ingredients that you are happy with in terms of your ideals and your morals, but also ingredients that you know work for your skin. And, you know, I speak from experience. You can go through hundreds of products trying to find something that works for you, and then, you know, within a year's time your hormone makeup has changed and you've got to start all over again. It's a constant cycle and a constant kind of set of discovery. So if you can find those brands that use ingredients and kind of work in a way that you're happy with, they will constantly be developing new things or tweaking formulations to reflect changes in ingredients or things like that. So it's good to find something that you're confident in and start your trial and error from there.
That's such sage advice, and it's also quite refreshing to know that it is a cyclical, lifelong journey, and the treatment I was using when I was 16 isn't going to be relevant to me at 26, 36 or 46, and that's a good thing. Like, it doesn't have to mean that there's anything wrong with that. It just means that, like you've said, staying up to date with what's new and what's available is probably the best way of doing it. This is a bit of a random question, but what is your opinion on brands? Do you know The Ordinary? Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
So if anybody isn't familiar, The Ordinary, I think, pretty much separate the compounds that you often find mixed up within normal cosmetics or skin products, so you can isolate the actual active ingredient and get a whole bottle of it. Yeah. What's your opinion on brands like that?
I think, again, it's always a personal thing. I sound like a bit of a broken record here, and it is trialing it out. But I personally like the idea of that kind of topical treatment. And personally, I have kind of like a set routine, but if I have flare-ups or spots, I always apply something that's a slightly more concentrated treatment. So I quite like the idea of kind of isolating those actives, particularly when they have, you know, you want them to have all that industry research behind them. And The Ordinary are quite pioneering in terms of their ideas around creating those kind of topical products. And actually it's becoming more popular, particularly with the rise of trends like waterless beauty and things like that. You see a lot more of the kind of like oil or compound based concentrates, which are good for treating skin, but it's one of those things where you must do your research before you try it. And I would say the same about, you know, products like chemical exfoliators. If you say have a face wash that's got salicylic acid in it, it's great to use an exfoliator. I'd recommend doing it maybe 2-3 times a week, depending on your skin or your environment, particularly for somebody living in a city. We're exposed to a lot of pollution, particularly if you're going on public transport. Then using an exfoliator is great for kind of getting rid of all the dirt that kind of goes into that top layer of skin. But your skin can react to it. And so it's important to know that with skincare, when you try a new product or a new ingredient, if you react to it instantly, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's your skin adjusting. And consistency is key with seeing both whether the product works for you, but also the results. So, you know, take, for example, an anti-aging cream. You're going to need to use that for at least a month before you can really start to see any of the results.
Mm-hmm. That's look, the idea of instant gratification is so deeply embedded in society now. I remember signing up for like a subscription for a specific type of skincare that was dermatologically approved by a dermatologist specific to my skin, and they kept reminding me, wait 5 months, and I'm thinking 5 months, so I have to wait 5 months to see a difference. But when you start to expand your timeline, it really gives you freedom to try one thing and to isolate the variables within your skincare, because there are so many, like you've just mentioned, diet, stress, you know, pollution, all this sort of stuff, as well as your natural skin state, whether you have flare-ups, eczema, that sort of thing. Those are already a huge amount of variables. So if you're constantly in your routine, you're never really going to settle on something which works long term. So that is a piece of advice. And you've sort of brought it up already, but you mentioned very briefly your own routine. I'm super curious to find out I mean, it looks amazing. Let's just call it out. So tell us, what do you do? What do you use? What do you champion? Like, what can't you live without? Give us the inside scoop.
I'm going to give you the very kind of textbook answer, as I do actually use the products that I make, which, you know, I should really, but, you know, again, it helps that I know what goes into them. So my daily routine, I cleanse with our fresh face cleansing milk in the morning. I use a toner. I'm currently trialing formulation for that one, but I have also used Lizelle's skin tonic, which is quite a good toner. If I'm not being super lazy or rushing, I do occasionally apply an eye cream. Then I use our new Cotidier face cream. The one I'm using at the moment is actually the previous version. I do try and use up, unless it's something has completely wrecked my skin, I do try and use up all the kind of testing stages. You know, we like zero waste with this. And then I apply an SPF, which everyone apply your SPF every day. That's kind of my morning routine. I try and wait if I have time. At the moment, I've got the wonderful luxury of working from home, so I don't really wear very much makeup. But I always try and leave a kind of a gap between skincare and makeup to allow those products to really sink in before applying that, if I am. And then in the evening, I double cleanse. So I use an oil cleanser, which again is another trial formulation, which fingers crossed will be nearly ready, and the cleansing milk. And then I apply just kind of a rich night cream. If I've got flare-ups or anything like that, then I also at night apply kind of like a concentrated topical oil, like I was talking about a moment ago. And then 2 or 3 times a week I use a kind of concentrated night oil, which has got pomegranate and jojoba and raspberry seed in. That's another work in progress.
I feel like I can smell it from here. It sounds gorgeous. I was about to say smells gorgeous, but I can't smell it. But I feel like because all of those ingredients sound great, and it must just be so liberating to know that what you're putting on your skin is something that you've made yourself. I just think that's remarkable, and it's also a really good testament to your own product. You're like a walking advert, basically. No pressure, obviously. So I mean, your routine sounds pretty nailed down. What do you find is something that is often touted in the beauty industry, like, oh, you must have these lip plumpers or double thing, or like, what's something that you just think that is complete bullshit?
I wouldn't probably target a specific product, because, you know, products that are put onto the market generally, particularly in the kind of sustainable and natural beauty space, they work, but, you know, not for everybody. But I would say there was a trend a little while back, and I've kind of seen it creeping in again a little bit, that, you know, you had to have this 10, 15, 20 step routine to get the maximum glowy skin. And I saw loads of media about it. And to me, that this was prior, I think, to really getting going with Scintilla. And I just thought, oh my God, all of that packaging and all of those products. And, you know, it just feels like such an enormous waste. And it's probably true that with a 20-step routine, you can have wonderful glowing skin. But it's also probably likely that if you switched just a couple of products out, you could probably attain the same skin with maybe only 6 of those products. So I think, you know, all of these different products that tackle eye bags and wrinkles and, you know, pores and smoothing complexion, there's no doubt that they probably do to some extent. But I think for me, I would recommend to people that you look for something that has a good mixture of those ingredients that tackles a lot of what you're looking for. Particularly if sustainability is your thing, then, you know, waste kind of goes hand in hand with that. And it certainly does for me. My background was in waste. So, you know, I went through a stage where I freaked out about everything I put in the bin, thinking about it blowing across a field somewhere in landfill, which, you know, is probably sadly the state of affairs. So I think, you know, minimizing your routine isn't always going to have a negative impact on your skin.
I love that. Lots of different angles coming in there. And I know myself and a lot of the audience as well will also feel the same when it comes to having that moment of like, everything I put in the bin is either going to go into the planet or be burned somewhere. It's insanity at the highest level. And you've obviously, with your background in waste, starting a skincare, like a product-based brand. What sort of things do you do, and what sort of challenges have you faced in creating a sustainable skincare line when it comes to the packaging or the shipping and the ingredients themselves? Like, what do you do, and how has it been either easy or hard?
It is a minefield, and you know, I kind of sit on the fence a little bit, because being somebody who's into sustainability, starting a retail company is, you know, they're not necessarily kind of the perfect match. But I kind of went into starting the brand with the view that, you know, I couldn't find what I was looking for, so I would have resorted to purchasing something that maybe wasn't quite as good for the planet, and therefore wanted to make sure people had an option to avoid that. And that's the main goal, really. But in terms of running the company, there is so much more to it than you think there is. You know, and I think what I try to do is be as sustainable as I possibly can, and then take each kind of part and figure out a better plan for it. So I run all of our operations on renewable energy. I manufacture everything, basically, so we don't have any outsourcing to big factories where we don't have control over what energy is being used and resources and that kind of thing. As you might have seen, all of our packaging is recycled glass or aluminium, and I know that glass can be kind of a bit of a contention point, because it is quite resource intensive to make but also recycle. But it's also heavy, so it's got a big carbon footprint. We source the glass jars from a local glass manufacturer, so try and keep everything as local as possible, and that kind of goes to the ingredients as well. The other thing with using the glass is that, unfortunately, we are fickle human beings, and aesthetics is actually still very important to consumers. I know a lot more in the sustainability space, people are more conscious about, you know, do I care if this is pretty? But maybe not as much as somebody else. But again, it brings that kind of luxury to the visuals. Sourcing in terms of cardboard and actual packaging is, again, quite difficult. You'll get a lot of retailers providing cardboard boxes, but they're not necessarily always recycled. And I really hate using virgin resources wherever we can. So we've managed to try and find a supplier that do recycled cardboard. So it's looking at the component of the business. We're kind of getting there with the operations, which I guess will change as we grow. The packaging is something that I'm just about happy with, but I'm always looking out for alternatives. And I know that sugarcane plastic is becoming quite a lot more popular with sustainable brands, and it's biodegradable, compostable, renewable source, but on the other hand, you recycle it with your household plastics. So I'm still learning about whether mixing up those types of plastics is actually better or worse, and that kind of thing at the moment for small brands like us is, you know, financially out of reach. So yeah, I'm really trying to look at each kind of component and improve as more information and more research comes out.
Wow. What a journey. I mean, especially from when, you know, there's almost like a paralysis when you have too much information.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I don't know if this is the same for you, but when we're making decisions about our company, we're thinking, what's the trade-off, really? Because it's really difficult to achieve like 100% perfect product.
Yeah.
But there's always more that we can do as we learn and evolve. And the idea with sugarcane sounds really interesting. But again, it's like, will it actually end up being recycled by the local council, depending on which area of the country they're in and all this stuff. But there's definitely the way the world is moving. And, you know, would you say since you started your business, there's a lot more interest in organic and sustainable beauty? Like, how have you seen that trend kind of evolve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think part of it might be that I just wasn't as clued in to this particular sector. But even in the 3 years since we've been running Scintilla, I feel like it's exploded. I feel like there's so much more interest into, and I think the same, it's kind of mirrored food. People are suddenly so much more aware about what they're putting into their bodies and also where it's coming from. You know, you see the rise of veganism, and I love going to the supermarket and being able to see, you know, plant-based meat. That's incredible. And I was reading earlier, and now I've completely forgotten the actual statistic, but I think something like vegan beauty in the last 12 months, I think the number of consumers searching for it is up by 65% or something, which is incredible. People are definitely looking for more plant-based across the entire spectrum of, you know, sustainable living, and organic and natural skincare is not excluded from that at all.
Wow. Yeah, it's I mean, I remember when I started looking at products and materials and looking at supply chains and where's it come from, I was absolutely appalled to find out that they use ground up like bugs, these like red insects, in order to use food coloring, and that might wind up in your makeup or your blush or things that you wouldn't even think to look for. And it's not under, like, you don't see on your product red bugs. You see like C804529 and you just think, oh, that must be, well, I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound like a bug. So the idea of vegan and clean, you know, they're becoming a bit more synonymous, and it's a bit of a catch-all. If it's vegan, oh, it's bound to be better for me. Are all of your products are vegan, I assume?
Yes, they are. We're completely vegan, cruelty-free, palm-free, plastic-free, which again is, you know, another all the frees. But yeah, I mean, plastic-free is an interesting one. You know, our end product is plastic-free, but I think I'd be amazed if there's any business out there who says we're plastic-free. It's completely plastic-free. You know, I get bulk ingredients from suppliers in big plastic tubs, which are recyclable, but, you know, there's no alternative at the moment. So yeah, I think everybody's working towards the same thing, which is great, but it's still very much baby steps. And whilst I wish it would hurry up, it's certainly, you know, there's so many different components to keep track of as your business move forward.
Well, I mean, if no one said it to you already this week, like, well done for all the work that you're doing. It sounds phenomenal. Knowing what ingredients to mix together for one, and then finding all of them, they're, you know, natural, they're local. I mean, that's also amazing, and as plastic free and environmentally friendly as possible. It really makes me wonder, walking down these aisles and things, I'm just thinking, this isn't the way to do it, you know. The way that you're doing it is the way to do it, and yet for you to define yourself, you have to say, well, I'm palm oil free, I'm vegan, I'm like all these things, which actually, if you look underneath it all, it's just the right way to do things. So well done. Your brand is amazing. Your products are great, and I know because I've tried a few. I've had you at my markets, and you're always a super, super popular brand. So yeah, just congratulations on all your efforts so far.
Thank you.
Yeah. And is there, I know you've also got like a giving model associated, like a profit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So we donate 10% of our profits equally across 2 charities. When we started the business, it was something that was quite important to me. You know, everybody's been kind of accosted on the street by somebody with a clipboard looking to raise money. And I think being able to give to charity is definitely a privilege. And I know that a lot of people can't. So I really wanted to be able to give people the chance to do that through making a purchase with us. But for me, you know, like I was saying earlier, being a retail brand is sometimes leaves me feeling like a little bit kind of awkward, but I wanted to be able to use the brand as a force for good, whether that's supporting, you know, other sustainable causes or whether it's sharing knowledge about lots of different things to do with sustainability. So we give 5% of our profits to the England and Wales mental health charity Mind. We've donated money to help support their hotline staff, which can quite literally be life-saving. And then our other charity is called Seed Madagascar, and this one's quite close to me. I've worked with them, and they do sustainable development projects in Madagascar. So that's everything from conservation to education and sustainable livelihoods and healthcare. We have supported their school infrastructure projects there, which is, you know, going to school for children in a developing country can be make or break with alleviating poverty. So that one was really important to me. And more recently, we've donated to their emergency food distribution program. Madagascar is currently going through quite a severe food crisis. Lots of cases of malnutrition, and some of Seed's bush staff have reported back that people are eating grass and tamarind paste and even clay to stave off the hunger. And sadly is COVID coupled with basically climate change. Madagascar is one of the countries that's most vulnerable to climate change. So we've been supporting their food distribution program there as well.
Amazing. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing it, so I feel shocked knowing that maybe I'm living under a rock or something at the moment, but there's almost so much going on in the news. I just feel generally overwhelmed by the whole thing. I have to be very a bit more like careful with what I consume, but you know, things like this are important to know, and it's so amazing to hear brands like yours which aren't just out to educate people, they're also out to leave the world in a better place and to prove that it's possible. So well done. Like, all of those projects sound incredible, and so for every purchase that you make through Scintilla, you're effectively supporting these projects, local manufacturers, and obviously your ability to keep doing what you're doing, which is fantastic. So where can we find you? Where can we buy from you? Are we going to see you at markets? Like, what if I want to get my hands on a Scintilla product, what do I need to do?
You can go to our website, which is www.wearescintilla.com. You can obviously find us on Instagram here. Hopefully there'll be some Christmas markets going on. I am going to be doing a pop-up in a John Lewis store in November for a week, which is very exciting. There's going to be more details to come on that soon. Yeah, I think that's it. Website, Instagram, that's mainly where we hang out.
The usual. Well, it sounds like if anybody wants to pop in and say hi to you and get a little bit more detail about matching your products to their personal skin, which is really important to do, sign up to your newsletter potentially as well to hear more. Follow Scintilla on Instagram and purchase from them. Try some ingredients, make some things yourself. I did have one question that came in from an audience member about hand soaps for sensitive or eczema-prone skin. Do you have brand recommendations for that particular question, or any other generally, or maybe even your own products might be suitable, but for somebody with sensitive or eczema-prone skin, what sort of hand soaps would you recommend?
So our hand soaps are made with shea butter in them, which is great for being a little bit more softer than your typical bar soap. But however, we do include a small percentage of essential oils in our soaps to fragrance them. So if you know that that's a sensitivity for you, then steer clear. One of the other brands that I buy soap from personally myself is Wild Sage & Co. They smell and look divine. So that would be my top recommendation.
Another option. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. I could obviously ramble on for centuries learning more about everything to do with Scintilla, and yeah, I've learned a lot from this conversation, so thank you very much indeed for being here with me this evening, and I look forward to learning more about your upcoming launch in, where did you say it was? John Lewis?
Yes, in November.
A pop-up in November in John Lewis, and yeah, follow, like, engage, and we'll be sharing this also on our newsletter as well. So thank you so much for joining, and
thank you for having me.
See you again very soon.